And when you knock us down, we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off.
Go ahead and say it, Ed. Go Tigers!
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
You like that? You like that?
F it. Jamar's down there somewhere.
In the Rolling Saints select Marcus Davenport.
No!
Splash Brothers. Yeah.
It's playoff. Keep going, Brace.
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs.
If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
What up, guys? It's Dirty Boot Sports here with Chasing the Trophy podcast. It's our fantasy football podcast, and today I'm going to be talking Week 8 recap with our Studs, Duds, and Overachievers. So I guess I'll just get right into it. This week, quarterbacks, Studs. Number 1 is Tua. He had 362 yards, 3 touchdowns, 19 rushing yards. Big game for this offense. He's had a couple of these big games. Going forward, I mean, I think he's a good quarterback. If you didn't have a quarterback this year that was very good and you picked him off the waiver wire, hey, he's probably going to end up a top 10 quarterback this year. So I think you got to be kind of happy with him this year. Number 2, Jalen Hurts, having an MVP type year. 285, 4 touchdown passes. He done almost all of this in the first half. They seem to do this. They'll score a bunch of points in the first half and kind of coast through in the second half. If he was to get the passing volume that some of these other, like a Josh Allen or some of these other ones that throw a lot, I mean, his numbers would be crazy. The Eagles are rolling right now. He's a big part of that. Him along with his running mate, A.J. Brown, who was a recipient of 3 of these, which we'll talk about later, having a big year. Number 3, Kyler Murray, 326 yards with three touchdowns. He did have 2 interceptions, but he had enough big numbers put up that didn't really affect it too much. He also had 36 yards rushing. I mean, he's going to have these games also. He'll put up some big games because he's down in a lot of games, has to come back. They're throwing the ball a lot, threw it 44 times, I think. You get up around 40, mid-40s to 50 passes, you know, that's a lot of volume. And he's just good enough to get you big numbers, but usually lose the game. Number 4, we'll go Dak Prescott. You know, coming back from the injury, he didn't do a whole lot in his first game. Had a lot better game this week. 250 with the 2 touchdowns, interception. He also ran 1 in, so 3 total touchdowns. Not a bad game for Dak coming back from his injury. He should get better. And by the end of the year, he should be right where he was. He might not get the volume he was getting before because it seems like they're going to run the ball. But he's still going to be a viable quarterback going forward. We'll go to Overachievers. Number 1, Justin Fields. He's starting to look better. He's still not getting great volume passing the ball, but he's getting more. It seems like they're letting him throw the ball a little more every week. He had 23 pass attempts this week. Him over 20, that's pretty good because early in the year he wasn't even getting 20. 10, 15 the first few games. And I think, they seem like they're going to let him throw a little more. He had 151 yards, 2 touchdown passes. He also ran a touchdown in with 60 yards rushing. He ran 8 times. So he's getting you some of both, passing and rushing. he's on the up and up. It seems like every week he's getting a little better. His numbers this week was pretty good. He was pretty good last week. If you're looking for somebody as a quarterback on the waiver wire, he might not be a bad pick, or even somebody just to stash on your bench in case one of your quarterbacks, if your quarterback gets hurt, or a bye week fill in, because there's still some weeks left for quarterbacks or all players on bye weeks. And, it looks like they're wanting him to throw a little more. They went out and got him some help. Chase Claypool now with the Bears. So looks like he'll be have another guy to throw to that could really help. Their receiving core is not that great. So we'll see. I mean, it looks like they're doing what it takes to point him in the right direction and get him more reps. So, hey, good for him. Number 2, Tyler Heineke, 279 yards and a touchdown. He did have an interception. He also ran one in, 29 yards rushing with a touchdown. So he had 2 total touchdowns. Washington with the win over Indianapolis. Didn't look bad. I don't know if he's somebody that you'd have to really be hurting to pick him up and use him every week. But, I mean, he is there. Number 3, Jacoby Brissett, 278 yards, 1 touchdown, 12 yards with a rushing touchdown, so 2 total touchdowns. Brissett's looked good this year running this team. He hasn't just put up monster numbers, but he's been a good quarterback for these Browns. They pulled off the big upset over the Bengals. Looked good doing it. So I don't know if he's somebody you want to start, but he's been a decent quarterback this year. And number 4, this guy, the first time he started looked terrible. Last week he looked pretty good. He looked good this week. P.J. Walker for Carolina. He threw the ball 36 times for 317 yards. He had a touchdown and also interception. This Carolina team kind of scrappy. Don't really give up in games, even though they're outmanned in a lot of games. I don't know if he's the future for Carolina, but he's not looking bad. So we'll see how that goes. And for duds this week, Derek Carr for Las Vegas. Our Saints defense stopped everything Las Vegas tried to do. So, I mean, the defense played so good against Las Vegas. They couldn't get anything going. None of the players had big fantasy weeks. So if you had any of the Raiders on your team, you can't be happy. They held Derek Carr to 101 yards passing, no touchdowns, 1 interception, and -1 yards rushing. I mean, that's about as bad as it can get. The Saints, they threw a shutout against Las Vegas and looked great doing it. Number 2, Sam Ehlinger, his first game starting for the Colts. He didn't do much in his first start. Had 201 yards, no touchdowns, 15 yards rushing with a fumble. I really thought he might run the ball a little better, maybe even a little more. Only 6 times for 15. I'm not sure what this Colts team is trying to do. Whatever it is, they're not winning games. So I don't know if they're just going to settle with this young quarterback and just see what he does. I don't know. But he didn't do a whole lot, nothing really to help the team win. So we'll just have to see. Another rookie here, Kenny Pickett. Pittsburgh's offense is just a dumpster fire. They just got rid of Chase Claypool. He had 191 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception, and a fumble. So he had 2 turnovers. He threw the ball 38 times and only had 191 yards. This team's just bad. They can't get nothing going in the passing game, can't get nothing going in the running game. This is not your typical Pittsburgh team, but, I guess they're going to stick with Pickett and see how it goes. I guess he's their future, so we'll see. Number 4, Trevor Lawrence, 133 yards with 1 touchdown, had 2 interceptions. He started a year out all right. It seems like he's got worse the last few games. This was a bad game for him. Not much to say on that. Just, he was kind of on the up and up after a couple of games, and now he's going the complete opposite way. So we'll see. Then the same thing with this guy. Daniel Jones had a big game last week, put up a lot of points, then comes back this week, 176 yards, no touchdowns, with only 20 yards rushing. He had been running the ball good. That's why he's been getting a lot of points. But this past week didn't do a whole lot. So a lot of people was big on him. Maybe you can go pick him up. After this, I don't know. People probably be dropping him again. We'll just have to see how that goes also. All right, let's see. And we'll go running backs. Running backs had a big week this week. If you had a part of some of these running backs, you probably won your league this week. Let's start out with our man from New Orleans, Alvin Kamara. After giving a speech to the team in the loss in Week 7, he put the Saints on his back Sunday with 3 big touchdowns. He looked like the AK that we used to. Looks like maybe his ribs are getting a little healthy. If this is the case, then, man, the second half of the year could be really good for Kamara. He had 62 yards rushing with a touchdown and 9 catches for 96 yards and 2 touchdowns. And he was that elusive back out of the backfield that we are used to seeing, tough to tackle. I hope he can continue this. He looked really good. And I expected a big game from him after, the speech and trying to get the team motivated. And it probably helped a lot that Sean Payton visited the facility, and I'm sure he gave a little pep talk to this team, and they come out and played like it. Number 2, Christian McCaffrey. Man, San Francisco, they've got something here. This guy played quarterback and threw a touchdown, played running back and ran one in, and played wide receiver and had a great touchdown catch in the end zone. And he just done everything for this team this week. Only thing about it, I just hope that they don't overuse him and end up getting him hurt, just using him so much on every play. I think they've got to let the backup get some carries just to keep him off the field some. He had 94 yards rushing on 18 carries. He had a touchdown, and then he had 8 catches for 55 yards and a touchdown. Plus, I also talked about him throwing one. Man, this San Francisco team is going to be scary when they get all healthy. They done this with Debo not even playing. They beat the Rams, who they've had the Rams number the last few years anyway. But, man, if you have Christian McCaffrey and you had him and was worried about him with Carolina, the trade was so great for you. Now you've probably got possibly the number one running back going forward, and it looks like they're going to use him. So that was a great deal for y'all. Number 3, Derrick Henry. Man, he looked like the Derrick Henry that we've been seeing the last several years. They are feeding him the ball again. 32 attempts, 219 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Monster game. He even had a catch for 9 yards. Man, this guy over the last, 4 or 5 years has just been money. And a lot of people come into the year thinking that he might fall off, but I think this answered everybody's questions on that, because he took the volume and ran with it. And if he's getting this kind of volume, you have got to be happy as a King Henry owner. Number 2, Tony Pollard. He had 131 yards, 3 touchdowns. Man, when Zeke's not playing, so he has started 2 games without Zeke, and in those 2 games, he's had 279 total yards and 5 touchdowns. I don't see how they cannot get him the ball more. I know Zeke's not going away. When he gets healthy, he's coming back in, probably be the starter. But I don't see how you cannot get him the ball more. When he touches the ball, he's electric. I mean, they have got and Zeke's been pretty good this year. He hasn't been bad. But 14 carries for 131 yards. I mean, you've got to get him close to that. I mean, you might have to take some throws away from Dak and become more of a running team. You know, with that defense, you can do that. But, man, they got to find a way to get this guy the ball. Let's see here. Number 4, Deonta Foreman for Carolina. He's another guy from Carolina that's just scrappy, good, running the ball hard, 118 yards, 3 touchdowns. Man, if you picked him off of waivers, you got a steal, it looks like. I think Chuba Hubbard he might not have played. I know he was injured. So he's going to take some of that away when he gets healthy, but I think they're going to stick with him running the ball mostly. Hubbard probably be your catching the ball out of the backfield type back. But yeah, if you got him off waivers over the last couple of weeks, you got to be happy. And then I'll throw, Nick Chubb. He does what he does, 23 carries for 101 yards, 2 touchdowns. That just sounds like a typical Nick Chubb game. And then the next guy, one I talked up big last week in my starts, Travis Etienne, 156 yards with a touchdown. With James Robinson gone, he's getting the volume now, and he looks like he's going to be a top 5 to 10 running back going forward. Man, if you could have traded for him before this happened. I tried to trade for him. I couldn't get the guy to trade with me, but before that, because I just seen the writing on the wall that James Robinson was they were leaning more towards Etienne. And then when they traded him, I'm like, man, this guy's fixing to go off. And sure enough, he did. He looks like about all they have in Jacksonville as far as offense goes anyway. And then Dalvin Cook, pretty good game, 111 yards, touchdown also. So, you got to be pretty happy with those running backs this week. I guess we'll go with overachiever is Antonio Gibson. With Brian Robinson there. Everybody thought it was going to be the Brian Robinson show. Antonio Gibson, he ends up with 7 carries, 19 yards. But he got 7 targets, 7 catches for 58 and a touchdown. So, and we've talked about this before. He's a wide receiver. Before he got in the NFL, they've turned him into a running back, so he can catch the ball really well out of the backfield. And it looks like they're going to use him. So let's see. Jamal Williams, even with DeAndre Swift back, he still gets the goal line carries. He had 53 yards with 2 touchdowns and then 3 catches for 23. So he had a pretty good game with Swift back. It seems like when Swift's there, he gets less carries, but he does just as good. But I have to believe that Swift, they probably easing him in. Swift's probably going to take some more of that away from him before it's over with. But another pretty good game for Jamal Williams. So next, let's go to duds. We'll start out with a guy I just talked about, Brian Robinson, 8 carries, 20 yards. Washington was wanting him to be the workhorse running back there. He was a great story, getting shot, coming back, but maybe he's just not the answer there. He hasn't really put up great numbers since getting put back in the lineup. They was big on him before the year. I've actually got him in a few leagues. Thought he was going to be pretty good. He's not really had the breakout game that we were hoping for. I think they'll stick with him some. Also, they get in these games where they get down, a lot of them, and they can't really establish the run. So they turn to the other running back, and we just talked about Antonio Gibson. And, because he can catch the ball better out of the backfield, it seemed like they turned to him, to do some of that. But as big as a lot of people was, including myself, before the year, I just don't know if going forward is he's going to be the guy. Number 2, Darrell Henderson. This Rams backfield is a mess. Darrell Henderson, you thought with Akers on the outs with the team that maybe he would step in and get the volume. No, he gets 4 attempts for 16 yards. So the rookie, Ronnie Rivers, doubled Henderson's carries with 8 for 21. But, he didn't do much better. More attempts, but not really any better results. I think they're just waiting for Kyron Williams to come off IR. I think that's probably who's going to turn into the number 1 before it's over with, assuming he does what they think he is. The coach is big on him. I picked him up and stashed him, put him on my IR spot. I hope he turns out to be good. I think I have him on 3 out of 4 leagues in my IR spot. He actually could come off IR, I think they said, as early as this week. They need some help. It looks like Cam Akers is just going to sit there because they didn't move him during the trade deadline. So I'm not sure what's going on with this backfield, but I'm staying away from it until I see. I hope Kyron Williams comes in, steps in, and does what they think he's going to do. But I don't know. I think it's more about the offensive line than it probably is the running backs. But we'll see. Number 3, I'm going to put this guy on there. He He had 76 rushing yards, no touchdowns. But, I mean, for a guy that was drafted number 1, and yes, I'm talking about Jonathan Taylor, he has not done much of nothing this year. He is the number 33rd running back as far as rankings go on the year for points. I got him in one league. I really thought he was going to be like a sure enough pick that, just start him and forget him and get you 30, 40 points. But, man, that's not been the case. He has definitely been a dud. And I would think that in most leagues he went number 1. And I'm going to go with another guy as a dud that was pretty much the same scenario. That's Najee Harris. He had 32 yards, no touchdowns. He actually had 6 catches for 26, which, last year I think he led all running backs in fantasy and catches. Maybe they get him going more in the passing game because evidently they cannot run. If he does, he might be a little better, but I just don't think he's going to be good. I looked, he's number 23 on the year. I'm really surprised he's even that high. But, I mean, that's not good for late first round running back to early second round where he was drafted. Number 23 is not what you were looking for. He's getting I want to say he's getting volume. I mean, he didn't really have a lot of rushing attempts, but they're down in every game. This offense is horrible. I mean, it's just not a good situation. I guess that's enough for running backs. We'll head over to wide receivers. Let's see. Number 1, A.J. Brown, 6 catches for 156 yards and 3 touchdowns. He done most of this in the first half. Man, if he got the volume the whole game, or got volume that some of these other wide receivers are getting, man, we would be talking about him up there with Cooper Kupp and Justin Jefferson and the likes of those. But this is, even though they've thrown the ball a little more this year, they're still typically a running team, play good defense. So, but golly, you got to be happy when he can do this in pretty much all in the first half. I have him on, I think, 3 teams maybe this year. So, and I think I won every one of those games. Pretty happy. Number 2, I'm going to go with DeAndre Hopkins. He had 12 catches for 159 yards and a touchdown. If you stashed him, you got to be happy because this is a league winner right here. Looks like might be a top 5 for the rest of the year. This team has got to throw the ball because they're behind in almost every game. Their running game is horrible this year. And he's looking for him just about every time. I mean, he had 13 targets, and he caught 12 of them. So he's about as sure-handed as it gets. Looks good, coming in week 7, first time he played this year, and you wouldn't have known that he'd even been, not playing as good as he looked. But, man, yeah. If you stashed him, you have got a gem right there. Number 3, Tyreek Hill, 12 catches, 188 yards. Man, this guy just eats up yards. He's the leading wide receiver in fantasy and yards. Having a great year. Can't say enough about this guy. I wasn't as big as some people were coming into the year, but I have definitely changed my mind about him. He's been great. I mean, speed, you just can't teach that, and he has definitely got it. Number 4, Jalen Waddle. He had 8 catches for 106 and 2 touchdowns. Man, this dynamic duo, Hill and Waddle, and Tua, he's in sync with both of these guys. That passing offense they got is pretty good, and I don't see it, stopping anytime soon. Number 5, DJ Moore for Carolina. New coaching staff, new quarterback. They're making it a point to get it to him. He looks like he's back like the wide receiver we remember from last year. He had 6 catches for 152 yards and a touchdown. He had a big 62-yard pass catch for a touchdown at the very end of the game. Just a bomb they throwed, and he just got in front of everybody and outran them and got the touchdown. The only thing, he took his helmet off. They called a penalty, moved the kicker back, and the kicker missed the extra point, and they went into overtime. But, I mean, shoot, if I'd have caught a pass like that, I would have probably took everything off. I mean, I don't blame him for just excited, wasn't thinking, took his helmet off. Without that catch, they wouldn't have been in the game. They ended up losing that game in overtime. The kicker could have won it with a short field goal. I think they were like 20 yards out, 25. Anyway, he missed the extra point at the end of regulation, then turned around, missed a field goal in overtime to win it. And then they turned around and Atlanta went down and kicked a field goal to win it. And Atlanta now sits number 1 in the NFC South. That game was for first place in the NFC, believe it or not, between Carolina and Atlanta. Let's see, what's next? We'll go, I guess, Overachievers. Number 1, this guy was hurt early in the year. Has come back. It looked pretty good. Rondale Moore, since he's been back, he's been pretty good. Now, Hopkins is definitely going to eat into some of that, but he had 7 catches for 92 yards and a touchdown. If he happens to be still available on your waiver wire, you might want to grab him because, they're going to need more than one wide receiver in Arizona. They're going to be behind. They're going to have to throw the ball. And he's the next man up behind Hopkins. So, he'd be a good one to pick up. And if anything happened to Hopkins, he's going to probably step in as the number 1. Next on Overachievers, Brandon Ayuk with Debo out. They got him the ball. He had 6 catches, 81 yards, 2 touchdowns. Man, San Francisco has got a lot of weapons. They'll have Debo coming back, Ayuk, McCaffrey, tight end. They have got it all. Once that defense gets healthy, they're going to be a scary team. Let's see, number 3, Garrett Wilson. He had a decent game, which the Jets got down, had to throw the ball. They hadn't thrown the ball a whole lot this year with Wilson. It was Zach Wilson. But they did in this game. Had 6 catches for 115 yards. Romeo Dobbs had a decent game, 62 yards receiving with a touchdown. And I guess the biggest overachiever for the week would be Damiere Byrd for Atlanta. He had 67 yards and a touchdown. Somebody whose name hasn't been mentioned on the podcast yet, so I thought I'd throw that in there. So now we'll go to duds for the week. The number 1 and 2 from the same team, the Los Angeles Raiders, Devontae Adams, 1 catch for 5 yards. Our man Taylor from the New Orleans Saints, in his second pro start, shut down Mr. Adams. And also Hunter Renfrow, 1 catch for 6 yards for Las Vegas. Yeah, it was just a bad game for Las Vegas all around. But they were playing against my team, so I didn't mind it at all. Number 3, Cortland Sutton, 1 catch for 13 yards. Man, this guy has fell off big time. You know, he started the year out pretty good, but over the last couple of weeks, man, he's just not been good. He hasn't hardly done much of anything. I'm not sure what's going on there, which part of it might be the quarterback play. Number 4, Gabe Davis, 2 catches for 35. This guy was, people was big on him going into the season, and he's one of them hit or miss guys. He'll have a big game, blow up, have like 40 points, but then he'll have 2 or 3 games where you don't even hardly know he's on the field. But you almost have to start him because you never know when that game's going to hit. And when it hits, it's usually big. I usually try to stay away from those type of guys when I'm drafting. I'm looking more for the steady guys that you know what you're getting. Mike Williams is who comes to mind when I think of Gabe Davis. He was that guy that would have a big game and then 2 or 3, which over the years Mike Williams has got a little better with that. But Gabe Davis, this is one of the weeks he kind of didn't do much. Number 5, Christian Kirk, 3 catches, 40 yards. They paid a lot of money to get this guy over here, and he hasn't really produced a whole lot. He was my sit for the week as far as wide receivers go. I'm going to also mention Drake London. He started the year out pretty hot and has just fell off. Hasn't done much over the last several weeks. He 4 catches for 31 yards. I guess that's enough talk for wide receivers. We'll skip on over to tight ends, which there wasn't a whole lot going on with tight ends this week. One of the number 1 tight ends, Mark Andrews, went down with a shoulder injury. He's already banged up with a knee injury. And then Kittle was on bye. So the 2 top wide receivers, Mark Andrews was on the field for a little while, but not much. So number 1, as far as studs, Tyler Conklin for the Jets. He had 6 catches for 79 yards and 2 touchdowns. This was kind of like I was saying, the Jets down. They don't typically do this, throw the ball a lot, and he's not really had any big games this year. I wouldn't expect this to continue. It might have been his best game he'll have all year, it was a good game. Don't get me wrong. I'm not taking nothing away from him, but I wouldn't pick him up expecting him to start doing this every week. And speaking of Mark Andrews, the guy that come in for him, Isaiah Likely, man, this dude looks talented. He was making some big catches look like easy. He had 6 catches on 7 targets for 77 yards and a touchdown. Man, on just about any other team, this would be the man. But, man, when you're playing with Mark Andrews, who's probably the second best tight end in the league, you're not getting a lot of chances. If Mark Andrews happens to sit because of the injury this week, I would consider Isaiah Likely a must-start, the way he looked. So this guy, just keep him on your radar. If you see that Andrews is out and you need a tight end, this is probably the guy you want to look for. Number 3, Kyle Pitts. Hey, we haven't been able to say his name as a stud this year, but he was the number 3 guy this week. He looked like what we thought he was going to look like. Had 5 catches. They targeted him 9 times, which has got to be the most targets this year. 80 yards and a touchdown. Man, this is what I was expecting from him this year. And I'm trying not to get my hopes up. I have him in one league because he'll let you down and have 1 catch for 4 yards next week. But he sure looked good, and I hope they can keep it up. We are talking about the first place Atlanta Falcons, so maybe they're gonna they found something with that. I hope so. And then I'll go with Dalton Schultz. Now that Dak's back, he's one of his favorite targets. So he had 6 catches for 74 yards. When Dak wasn't in there, they never even looked his way. Dak likes throwing to him. So now that Dak's back, he looks like he's going to be a startable tight end. And, if you need a tight end and you can trade for him, it might not be too bad of a deal if you don't have to give up much. Overachievers, Evan Ingram. With the Giants over the last few years, he had some pretty big games. Looked like he was going to be a top 5 tight end. He just could not stay healthy. He's been healthy in Jacksonville. He had a pretty good game, 4 for 55 and a touchdown. Like I said, if you need a tight end, unless you have the top couple of tight ends, you're probably looking to upgrade. So you keep your eye on this guy. If he continues to do it, he might be one that you could start. And another one I'm just like that is Greg Dulcich for Denver. He had 4 catches for 87 yards. He's another one. If he's out there in your league and you need a tight end, you better go get him because he won't be there long. He looks like he's, could very easily be a startable tight end, especially with the way tight ends are this year. And I'm not going to say much as far as duds. I will mention Tyler Higbee. Started the year out really good. The last couple of weeks, over the last 2 games, he's kind of been down. He had 2 catches for 15, and I think he had like 1 or 2 catches last week. So if you have him, he's rostered in over 90% of the league. So he's been started almost. If you've got him, you're starting him. So just keep an eye on him and see how he continues. You might want to look one of these other guys just to fill in if you need to. I guess that's all we're going to talk about as far as Week 8. We're going to be doing our starts and sits podcast later this week and talk about who we like for the week. So good luck with your fantasy football teams this week, and we'll be talking to you in a couple days.
This ain't how it's supposed to be. It should be just you and me.